Back here live on nextsportsr.com. It is Being Frank on NSS. Frank D'Angelo has rejoined us and talking about character issues and coaching as we went into the break. Frank, I'm still shocked like you are about this whole story about the LA Kings locking Darryl Sutter out of the dressing room. I've never even heard of such a thing happening before.
I think it's completely disrespectful whether the coach was an asshole or they didn't agree with him. They're getting paid. He's their boss. It's the chain of command. And I'm shocked that ownership or upper management allowed that to happen. And, you know, in all fairness to him, you know, to Mr. Sutter, he's had to deal with, you know, two prima donna players with giant salaries who I believe that if you're caught, I believe, you know, but, you know, there's a bunch of bullshit and rhetoric. I believe if you're caught breaching your agreement, your contract should be null and void. It's the same as you have insurance in driving. If you have a car accident under the influence of alcohol or drugs, your insurance becomes null and void. And it should be the same with a player. If a player's agreed to play under the terms and this and that, and he's fucking around and he's not doing what he's supposed to do, that contract should be null and void.
Yeah, I
end the story.
Otherwise, there'll be no insurance. That's what it's going to come to. They're not going to insure these guys.
Yeah, well,
I'm with you.
I'm just telling you, you know, it's the greatest game in the world, and you got to be the luckiest son of a bitch in the fucking world to be paid to play a game. I only wish that would have happened in my life. You know, it's an unbelievable, you know, gift from the gods of up above, and to take advantage of that like that is disgusting. So, and to lock out your coach, I don't give a shit if he's the biggest prick in the world. I think that the NHL should have stepped in and fined everybody. Just like you're not allowed to criticize a ref, correct?
Well, yeah, Bill, is that new ground? I mean, this is the first time I've heard of a team actually physically locking the coach out of the room.
Oh, it's the first time I've ever heard of it.
Bill, do you agree with that, or do you think it's a total something that they should have been reprimanded and punished for doing something like that?
My guess is it's probably happened before, but this day and age, there's so many reporters around. One of the reporters actually...
I disagree with you, Eric. I don't think it's ever happened.
You know what? I think... listen, I mean, I think that sometimes players hold players-only meetings. And I'm, you know, where they specifically say, okay, listen, we don't want coaches in here, whatever. Sometimes I'm sure in the heat of the battle, the players will say, okay, fuck this, we're talking, and we don't want the coach around. But you know, now, you know, nothing can happen without it being reported. I mean, we saw that with the Red went off when.
I'm telling you right now, you know, Billy made a very good point. And like I said, Billy knows his stuff, and he's always fair in his viewpoint. A guy works for you for 5 years. If now he's, you know, things change. Nothing lasts forever. We all know that.
Well, listen, if Darryl Sutter had not won 2 Stanley Cups, then you're right. After this year, the Kings might have fired him because the players don't want to play for him. But he's getting the reprieve and he's getting the second chance because he's won the Cups. And so basically they're going to say, okay, listen, let's try to make this work here. I know we missed the playoffs this year, but, you know, we still got the core intact, and we sort of got to get on the same page. But, you know, he's earned himself the right to stay on there, despite the fact that I'm sure a lot of players don't want to play for him.
Or give him a respectful send-off.
Yeah, I mean, as Bill said, you could just sort of put him in the front office and change his role, right? And hire a younger coach. I mean, those are always options.
Mutual agreement. We've decided to part company.
Exactly.
Darryl will be retained as an advisor to the general manager.
Yep.
Simple enough. But, you see, we've made a point in the discussion. These players may have said to their boss, Dean Lombardi, look, we just wanted to have a private meeting. We left the door locked. We didn't mean anything by it. We were gone by the time he got in. That had nothing to do with Darryl Sutter, the person, or the coach. We wanted our privacy to talk about how poorly we'd played.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Players hold players-only meetings all the time.
Would anyone really buy that, though? I mean, oops, we forgot that we left the door closed and Darryl couldn't get in?
No, but it's a great comeback.
Yeah.
You're right, Carlin.
It's a great comeback, Carlin. It's a great comeback to justify embarrassing and disrespecting your coach. I would say that makes more sense than the fucking dog ate my homework.
Yeah, but if Darryl's sitting there knocking on the door and no one's answering, I mean, it's sort of hard to say we didn't hear him knocking.
But they had a reporter of great repute.
Yeah, Brooksy.
What's his name with the New York Post?
Brooks. Yeah.
And there has not been a drop come out of L.A. They have smothered the whole thing.
They haven't denied it either, right?
Oh, no, they haven't denied it, nor have they supported any veracity to it at all.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes, if you get ahead of a story, you can stop it.
Well, you know what? Ask Tortorella, the kind of reporter Brooks is. If he knows humanity on, he's going to report it.
Shocks me. I thought I was pretty shocked when Bobby Clark talked about Roger Nielsen, that he fired him, and then in the interview he said, "Well, we didn't tell him to go get cancer." I mean, the guy busted his ass for the team. He's probably one of the guys who'll go down in history books as being one of the most decent coaches in the NHL. It always shocks me how there's such a disconnect with respect on some of these. It's unbelievable. I would not, if I was the ownership of the LA Kings, I would have fined every single player. That should not be tolerated, that you lock out a coach.
Well, unless they've got, they've got some kind of a story, and the only way to expose the story is to make it a bigger story. They don't want to do that. Somebody's handled this well. I don't know who it was, because that story should have been a bigger story.
Well, I mean, for me, I would say, if you don't want the coach to come in, why wouldn't you send him a memo or a text or a fucking message and say, look, we don't want you in the dressing room. This is a players' meeting if you don't mind, right? Why would Sutter be knocking on a fucking door and then when they found out he ran to go get the fucking key, they took off? What is a high school fucking thing?
Well, no, it sounds very impish.
Yeah,
that's a good word for it.
And can you imagine the anxiety and the anger you would have as a coach if that happened to you? I ask you, Carlin, if you were in his position, would you not be totally mortified and pissed off at the same time?
Oh, absolutely, I would. I mean, I'm put in a position of leadership over these 20 guys, and like you say, it's an absolute mutiny. But if Darryl Sutter is smart, maybe he does a little bit of self-introspection there and says, okay, how have I gotten to this point where I am literally locked out of the room now? I mean, it's gotta...
No, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if it shouldn't happen. End of story.
No, it shouldn't happen, but you have to wonder how it got to that point.
When you allow that to LA players to get away with it, it'll happen in Toronto, it'll happen in Montreal. That should not happen. That's why Bettman has always been very tough on certain issues. He won't fucking tolerate it. And when you do that, hockey is the only game in the world where fighting is tolerated. It's part of the game. But in any other sport, you fight, you're gone. You're gone. Mm-hmm. You don't go in a box and feel shame for 5 minutes. You're gone. So you see very little fighting in other professional sports, correct?
Correct.
Well, as you said, it's not part of the rule book.
But it's not tolerated.
You're going to get suspended, absolutely.
But it's not tolerated.
Right.
So when you tolerate something, it's going to happen. So the NHL tolerates fighting. 5 minutes is no big fucking deal, especially if it's a goon. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He takes out the opposing team's better player. So what I'm saying to you is, I think that locking out a coach is a big deal. Personally.
Unless they've got another explanation for it, Frank, and I think the potential is there for Sutter to have overreacted. The fact that they locked him out leaves a little room for imagination, but they may have been talking to each other about how poorly they played and just cleared out. I've never been in the New Jersey arena. I think it must have been in that arena, the Prudential Center. But whatever happened, Sutter was still at the door, and the boys were gone.
Yeah, I think it comes down to poor craftsmanship is all it was.
The regular season, and it really explains how the Kings played. I mean, they lost to the Oilers and Flames in 2 of their last 3 games, which cost them a playoff spot. And I was wondering, you should be a desperate hockey team. How do you come out and lose to Edmonton, and then you hear that story, like, okay, now I see how they lost to Edmonton. They weren't a very focused hockey team.
And I just think it's poor craftsmanship. I mean, the building in New Jersey, it's not designed very well. Those doors, they stick very often. So I'm gonna lean on that one for now.
Okay.
Anyways, listen, guys. Bottom line, they locked them out. You guys can sit there and play games. They locked them out, and he knows they got locked out. And management or executive management took the side of the players. End of story.